Well, that was sure an abrupt end to a wild season of Packers football. Join us as we discuss that final game and, more importantly, include your insightful feedback, all next on your Packers Fan Podcast.
And just like that, it's over. I'm Scott Clark from the Gaming Outsider Podcast, and I gotta say, I haven't been so bummed on a Monday in a long time. The season may be over for the Packers, but there's still plenty of football left before the Super Bowl. Here's to hoping we can enjoy what we've got left, even though there will be no green and gold present in the playoffs.
I hear ya. Wayne Henderson, glad to have you all along with us because misery loves company, right? Actually, I'm glad you're here because I want to start off by thanking you for being a part of this past season. You truly made it special for Scott and I. And speaking of Scott, man, I greatly appreciate you being part of the show again this year. It was full of so many numerous, fabulous memories of shenanigans, tomfoolery, balderdash, and all that good stuff.
It has been great, man. And thank you for letting me be a part of this. Is this my third year? I think is this 3 years?
I don't know.
Or 2 years?
I lose track. It's at least three. Because
it's got to be three because we did the Wager of Fun, right? You won the first 2 years. This is your third year of winning the Wager of Fun. So
this has actually, I think, been your fourth year because this was my fourth win of the Packers Fan Podcast Wager of Fun.
Was it? Okay, well, that's why I forgot it because I'm trying to let that out of my brain. But I really do appreciate it, man. I can't believe it's been 4 years already. That's kind of nuts. I kind of taken up Troy's mantle there and appreciate you letting me stick around for as long as I have.
Of course. Thank you, Scott. This is episode 271 of the Packers Fan Podcast, the show by and for fans of your 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers. This time around, Scott and I are going to review the highs and lows from our Packers season-ending loss to, of all people, the Detroit Lions.
I will also share your listener feedback. Hopefully, I'm not going to have to get some Kleenex handy for all the tears that are probably going to be shed. Hopefully we get some Hardy Go Pack goes in there anyway. But even though the game was a loss, we did have some highlights to talk about. Let's talk about some of the leaders in the game. First off, Aaron Rodgers did throw for 17 out of 27 passes for 205 yards, 1 touchdown, and only 1 interception, although it was real close to being more than that. Aaron Jones had 12 carries for 48 yards, and Christian Watson, 5 receptions for 104 yards. He is going to be something special next season for sure. I feel like he's going to be a key asset for this offense, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does.
I'm definitely going to agree with you on that one, Scott. The game started off well enough on the opening drive. Our offense, it was very decent. Lots of running, which we like to see. We got maybe a little bit lucky with a pass interference call, but we had to settle for a field goal, and I was thankful that we got the points, but I was a little nervous that might come back to bite us in the butt. Now, our defense started off on their opening drive, 3 and out. That was good, but again, got a little bit nervous when it looked like there was going to be a flag called against something for some reason, but Scott, it wound up just being a player's glove.
Yeah, I don't remember that happening in a really long time, but it's always on those third downs where you're like, okay, we stopped them, or is there going to be a flag? Is there going to be a flag? And then they said, oh, there's a flag on the field, and they even had the little logo on the screen that said a flag was thrown. So even the people watching the game were thrown off by a glove thrown on there. So, that's kind of the potential danger when it's a Packers game. The yellow gloves are very similar to the yellow of the flag, so it's bound to happen at some point. I'm just surprised it doesn't happen as often. I guess why would gloves come off? I don't know.
Solid question right there.
Yeah. We also had a pretty huge 4th down conversion around the 2-minute mark of the first half. It started out as a 4th and 6 right around midfield. Rodgers finally drew the defense offsides to make it 4th and 1. I feel like it's been a long time since he's been real successful at that, and it had to be that rookie Detroit Lion. But and then Dillon jumped over for the first down line in beautiful fashion. That was a huge sigh of relief at that point in the game. I was like, oh, thank goodness, because as we'll hear about later, it's not the only 4th down conversion we tried that game. So,
oh my, that sounds a little ominous. I'm very thankful of the fact that Mason Crosby got 3 first-half field goals. I don't know why at least 1 or 2 of those couldn't have been touchdowns, but Mason was pretty much money. Then we got greedy, tried for a 4th field goal, which doinked much like last week, but this time, unfortunately, it doinked and bounced out instead of in, as is tradition.
Yeah, that's pretty much how that works when you hit the crossbar. Very rarely bounces in the opposite direction. But yeah, kudos to Mason Crosby, because everybody's talking about whether or not Rodgers is returning. I'm more interested to know if Mason's coming back or not, because he's officially the longest running Packer, the highest scoring Packer in history. He's played more games than anybody, and all anybody can talk about is Rodgers. I'd like to keep our kicker too.
I guess that goes hand in hand with being the quarterback. You're just going to get talked about the most. So we had that. And then a third quarter comeback drive after the Lions took the lead briefly. 45-yard pass to Watson. And it was a fantastic catch. He was being interfered with, which I thought, that alone is going to give us the first down. But somehow he was able to catch that ball. And then, of course, we got the 13-yard pass to Lazard in the end zone for, I think, our only touchdown of the game. So
it was,
another huge sigh of relief, as you say. But how do you catch a ball like that when you're being interfered with at that level?
I don't know. It's just kind of insane to watch. It's kind of crazy.
Like you said earlier in the show, that dude is really going to be awesome next year and the year after and the year after.
I'm really paying attention to his speed a lot more than I have been at the beginning of this season, because the announcers won't, stop talking about it. But he really is quick. I mean, he's just legitimately, and from what I've heard from people that are at the game, that his speed on the field when you're there, it doesn't do justice when you're watching it on TV, just how quick that guy is. So I'm foreseeing a very pleasant future for that young guy in the coming seasons.
The announcers do love to bring that up. And did you know, the announcers reminded us, did you know Devontae Adams used to be a Green Bay Packer?
I did not.
And did you?
Thank goodness they were there to tell me.
I know. And did you know that the very first game of the season that Watson dropped what would have been a surefire touchdown? Did you know? Did you remember? The announcers need to get a grip.
You got to keep in mind too that it's a Sunday night game, so there's a much bigger audience than your normal noon or 3 o'clock game. So you're having a lot of fans that don't know the names quite as well. I mean, that'd be like, somebody in another team. I don't know all the history of every team. You know what I'm saying? So I get it to some degree. On a Sunday night game, yeah, go ahead and give that information. But
okay,
on a Sunday noon game or a Sunday 3 o'clock game, we know, guys. We know.
It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field.
Think?
Oh, man. We went for it, like you said, on 4th and inches on their own 31-yard line. Seemed like we were just going to draw them off sides like we've been doing for years. But running a play to Lazard, who, if the Detroit Lions know we just have a few inches to go, maybe it's going to be a quarterback sneak, which is potentially the most successful option. It led to 3 points for Detroit to tie the game with 7 minutes left in the first quarter. But the fact that we just needed inches, it just fall forward or something like that. Why make it more difficult than it has to be?
I don't understand. And I think the key point here is that they ran a running play to Lazard. Lazard is not that guy, man. Lazard is not a Jones or a Dillon. If you're going to do that play, give it to those guys that can chug forward and make something happen. Not the quick guy that's there for, quick slants and things like that. That made no sense to me. I was fully expecting a quarterback sneak or a run up the gut or something. It was like a really bad bootleg.
It just didn't look right from the get-go. And I know we've been clamoring for us to, run the ball when it's 4th and inches, but not like that.
not like that. And I'm just not a fan of this play calling either. It's way too early in the game to be that aggressive. I smelled a little bit of overconfidence in LaFleur. On our own 31,
It wasn't as bad as the previous a week or two ago when we tried the fake punt on our side of the field, which was a complete disaster. But this was just didn't make sense.
Not at all. Nor did the fumble that we lost inside of the 2-minute warning of the first quarter. Looked like we were in position to score. Things were going really well. We had just converted on 4th down earlier in the drive. Aaron Jones had what looked like a decent run, but unfortunately fumbled the ball near the sideline, and it was recovered by the Lions. The thing I will make as a positive out of this, though, was I really appreciated Aaron Jones. On the sideline, he is owning his mistake. They had a little shot of him going around, patting himself on the chest, basically saying, my bad. That was my bad, guys. Kind of encouraging his team. I made a mistake. Don't let this stop us from being successful. I made a mistake. I apologize. Let's move. That's how I took it. Something that we have literally never seen Aaron Rodgers do. I don't think I've ever seen him do that once.
I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure that it's happened. And a lot of other players do that type of gesture, but something about the way that Aaron Jones did it, it seemed more genuine to me than what a lot of other players do. I really felt it. I mean, through the TV. Maybe I'm a mind reader. I don't know, but it just looked very genuine. Now, a question. What the heck was that happened at the end of the first half? This was when the Lions were lining up for a 48-yard field goal. They were going to close out the half. Rasul Douglas was walking down the line, wandered into the middle of everything, reached for the ball for some reason, and then he got a personal foul penalty, not sure why, and the flag came out, it seemed like long after the play had already been ruled dead.
Yeah, it wasn't like an encroachment or offsides or anything. The play was dead, and we're not really sure what happened.
I assume maybe he was kind of, in a way, they thought he was pushing the face of another player. Didn't look that way to me, and it put the Lions in a much closer range. And is his name pronounced Badgley? He brought the score to 9-6. I'm like, oh boy, it's going to be a night of field goals, and we need more than the Lions. But that was just so strange. I went back and watched it a few times. Didn't it seem like there were a lot of errant whistles, like maybe somebody thought a timeout was called or something, and then it just was surreal.
But even then, why did Douglas take it upon himself to walk up down the middle of the line to grab the ball? What was the purpose of that?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. If you remember last week, one of my keys to victory for this game was to keep a cool head and avoid these stupid penalties. You remember that?
I remember it clearly.
And apparently Quay Walker wasn't listening because he had the stupidest penalty I've seen in a long time that actually got him ejected. If you remember, Swift was being checked up by the athletic staff because he was down injured. And a member of the staff pushed Walker aside, and he responded with an even harder shove. Oh, man, that got a personal foul, got him kicked out of the game. And it gave the Lions a first and goal in the red zone, which led to a rushing touchdown by Williams to give the Lions the lead. Of all the bonehead things you're going to do in what's basically a playoff game, how are you going to do that? I just don't get it.
It was so frustrating, especially with so much on the line. And also frustrating because Quay was doing so many good things for us earlier in the game. Now, I totally agree. You can't go pushing people around, whether they're trainer, staff, or other players. But I don't think it warranted being ejected. It looked, and it came in so late. Here's how it looked to me: was maybe he thought that it was a Lions player that pushed him, and he was pushing them back.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, and even then, okay, we'll take the 10, 15 yards, whatever. But then after a long, long pause, all of a sudden, and by the way, he's being ejected. I think what happened was, especially after last Monday night with the heroic things done by the training staff at the Buffalo Bills game, that as soon as this turned out to be, he pushed a member of the training staff, these people right now are heroes. You can't do that. I think the NFL called the refs and said, you got to just kick him out of the game. He's got to be ejected because it was training staff. End of story.
I mean, I think it was the right call. Don't get me wrong. Even before everything that happened last week. Yeah, I do. And not because of what happened. I think what you're saying is exactly right. I think that call was made because the NFL is trying to save face at this point and want to be looked at as safety is their number one important thing. But I still think it was the right call to eject him. You don't put your hands on somebody that's not a player. I mean, you don't put your hands on a player when the play's dead anyway, but you definitely don't put your hands on somebody that's got no pads and they're actually out there to help somebody. I think that was the right call. What I think was not the right call was the reaction to people's reaction rather to him walking down the tunnel. Clearly emotional. He was in tears and upset with himself, and people took that as him pouting, like he didn't deserve it. I don't take that way at all. I feel like he was in tears because he was frustrated with himself and he let his team down, because he is a key part of that defense. And this is the second time he's got ejected this year. You know, in his mind, he's like, I didn't learn last time, and here I mess it up. And, you know, he's probably thinking this is possibly the last play I had for this season. And because of the mistake, it could be my last play as a Green Bay Packer as well. So I don't fault the guy. I'm tired of this whole, oh, that's a bad look on a dude crying. Dude just lost a huge opportunity and potentially cost his team, a score. So I'd be emotional too. I just got really upset with people's response to that, like calling him a wuss, and he was like boo-hooing and stuff and a crybaby. No, he was upset with himself. I never once while watching that thought, man, what a baby. I was like, wow. I'm happy to see that as opposed to the no emotion that we get from other players that are rejected or getting mad like I didn't deserve that. Again, he owned it. And I don't know. People's reactions really make me mad, make me angry.
People do some crazy things. And I read it the same way. He was just so upset with himself. And, you know, there's no excuse no matter your age, but this is one of the dangers that comes with starting a rookie. You know, they're so young still and inexperienced, and he's going to learn from this. And he was getting better this entire season with his play on the field. I'm sure he's going to learn from him, and I'm sure that next season he's going to be even better. I'm almost positive he's still going to be a Green Bay Packer. He just, you know, it's one of those things, and very unfortunate. But like you said, we've seen some other players that get ejected, and on their way down the tunnel, they stop to sign autographs. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's a bad look right there. Oh,
totally.
And how about the final 4 minutes of the game? Rodgers throws. He was off a lot at the very end of this game, and he got another interception. I think it was his second. He was just, I don't know if it was the heavy pressure from the defensive line, and it was just kind of a bad throw, interception, and it was pretty much the dagger for the Lions. And that's about the time we all started hitting our foreheads like, why? What's going on?
Just so sickening. Couldn't even stop 3 yards. They just could not stop their run game whatsoever. I feel like this entire game was a battle of whose offensive line was going to protect their quarterback the best. And it was pretty even matched up until that final drive. It was just like their defense just was their offensive line was just not letting anything through. And the Lions were pulling off crazy things. That first play when they're trying to kill the clock, they threw a pass. Like that was just the craziest, weirdest thing. I was like, all right, I'll take that incomplete pass. But, it didn't work out for us in the end. So, well, Wayne, that is all the highs and lows of the game. It feels kind of sad now, and that's the last time we're going to kind of recap a game this season for the Packers. But it's not the last time we've heard from our listeners. It sounds like you've got some feedback for us, quite a few this week. Do I need to get some Kleenex handy or no?
You might need 1 or 2 Kleenex handy. I won't tell you which calls may bring that effect. But yes, we wanted to close out. This is the season finale episode of the Packers Fan Podcast. And the listeners brought some great information that we didn't even think of. So take it away, Dan in Indy. You may know him better as Captain Pack Sparrow.
Go, 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 go. Screw that! Go, 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 go! Go, Pack, go! I ain't going out like that. You know me better. I'm not even going to talk much about the game, but one thing. Quay Walker, what are you doing pushing a trainer, you dipstick? Come on, you're better than that. He's out there trying to help somebody. Anyways, little housekeeping real quick. I want to congratulate Sir Troy Heinrichs and 13 Lizards for winning the first annual Packers Fan Podcast Fantasy Football Championship. Way to go. Get in touch with me because I got something I need to send you. It's amazing what can be done and accomplished when nobody cares who gets the credit. And I think that's what happened last night with the Lions. They had no dog in the fight other than to embarrass us and keep us out of the playoffs. And they did exactly that. Which, now there's a lot of questions. What's going to happen in the offseason? Is Rodgers going to come back? Cobb, Crosby? Who knows? I think Rodgers is going to come back with the size of his contract and everything that's going on, and the young receiving core, and the uptick or the increase in defensive play was evident in the last 4-5 games of the season. So the Green Bay Packers arrow is pointed up. On the other hand, so is the rest of the NFC North. I think the NFC North is going to be an extremely competitive division next year. I think I see it kind of like the NFC East, as far as competitiveness goes. I want to thank all the listeners out there. It was always awesome to hear you, Megan, and thank you for the shout out last week. Like Scott said, you do have a thing where you introduce yourself halfway through your voicemail. Andre in LA. Oh, love your Go Pack Goes. Art, love all your analysis and your thoughts. Jared, Mark, your emails from CCR. I'm going to really miss that over the next couple of months. On that token, or on that note, send in your Packers fan origin stories. Maybe Wayne can package something together and have like a mini episode during the off season to kind of wet our whistle, for the Packers, our love for the Packers. I want to thank you all for sharing this exciting journey in the 103rd version of our Green Bay Packers. So much happened this year, especially for me personally. The last few years have been kind of difficult. I lost Landon lost his mom 2 years ago in January. I lost my dad last January, but this year got to go to London. I got engaged on Lambeau Field and got married. So many positive things happening, and I was so glad to be able to share that with the community. The Packers Fan Podcast community Facebook page. It says it there right in the title, community. I love that we're all able to share our love for the Packers and even share some of our personal lives, and the things that we excel at, the things that are going good, and even when things not going so good, and we can still share that because we are a community, and that is what I love so much about this podcast and this Facebook group. I'm gonna miss it the next 2-3 months before the draft happens, and then waiting to see what happens after the draft. Definitely gonna miss you guys, miss hearing from all you guys, but we can still stay in touch. And I would be doing a huge disservice if I did not say thank you to Scott and to Wayne. You guys are the center of this podcast. You guys are the center of this community. You are the ones that make this happen. And I cannot thank you enough for giving all the listeners a platform to share our love for the Green Bay Packers. I cannot wait to meet you guys in person down the road. It's going to happen. Yeah, it's got to happen sometime. It's inevitable. But anyways, I got one thing left to say, and let's say it all together. Go, 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 Pack, go!
Wow, go Pack, go indeed. Started to sound like a dial tone there at the end. There was almost like a harmony. I loved it. Dan, thanks so much for the call, man. It's always great to hear from you. Listen, you're in Indiana. I know Wayne's way over on the West Coast, but I'm up here in Rockville, Illinois, and I know you've driven right past me on your way up to Lambeau multiple times. So, dude, if you're ever in Wisconsin, you're coming through, you got to hit me up. We'll get together for a beer, or I'll have you over, and we'll have some beers in my basement at my bar, show you some Packer stuff I've got, show you the old studio. It'd be awesome to catch up with you, man. Always love hearing from you. And, yeah, congrats to Troy. Wayne didn't win. Yeah,
that's for sure.
Congrats to Troy for winning the Fantasy Football League. I was I was this close to squeaking it in the playoffs. Actually, I think I did make it to the playoffs. I just lost in the first round. So did not do as well as I would have liked this year. But Troy knows what he's doing, man. So congrats. I am in total agreement that I think the NFC North is going to be a very, very competitive division. And that's not something I would have thought going into this season. I mean, I never thought that the Vikings were going to win the division as handily as they did this season either, or that we were going to be fighting against the Lions for that wild card spot. I mean, it's just all been nuts. But I don't know. I don't know about the Bears. The Bears going to be super competitive. I mean, Justin Fields, as much as I don't like the Bears, Justin Fields is a formidable force for that team, but they need a lot more help than a solid quarterback. So,
what do you think they're going to do with the number 1 pick in the draft?
I have no idea, man. I have no clue. That is so far away at this point. I feel like the draft is going to be. I can't even think about that right now. But yeah, Dan, thanks so much, man. Be sure to hit me up if you're ever in the area, man. I am not far from if you're coming in on 90, I'm not far from where 90 and the bypass hit. So be sure to hit me up, man.
And unfortunately, I'm near the 91, so that's a whole different highway system right there. Dan, again, thanks for all your calls and your support. And I appreciate you bringing back up the Packer fan origin stories, because we've heard a few and they've all been different and all been wonderful. But if you do happen to call them in, during this off season at +1 920 3PAC-GO, or record them on your phone, attach them to an email and send them to feedback@PackersFanPodcast.com. We will put out a special episode with some fan origin stories. Let us know how you became a fan of the 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers. So many great memories made over this past season. Thanks for the shout out for the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community group. And Scott, have you dipped into your Kleenex box just yet?
Not yet. It's at the ready though.
Okay, well, let's carry on.
Hey there, Wade and Scott. It's Jared in Colorado. Well, definitely not the way we had hoped the season would end. I don't know, I've been thinking a lot about what I wanted to say in this feedback. I would definitely want to start off by saying, this, oddly enough, this loss doesn't hurt as bad as the last couple of years. And I really think part of that is because, I had actually given up on this team from even being considered for the playoffs, earlier in the season when they were on that losing streak. And so the fact that the Packers were playing a meaningful game in the last week of the regular season was pretty fun. It was pretty cool to be able to look forward to that. But as far as the loss itself, I mean, it's kind of a lot of the issues that were plaguing the Packers, even during the winning streak. I mean, there were some, a lot of the issues, slow starts to the offense. The defense, honestly, is as amazing as they've been in that winning streak. When they don't generate turnovers, a lot of the weaknesses, and they're pretty significant ones, of our defense shows if they just can't generate turnovers. And that definitely showed tonight. And frankly, and this is the third thing, which I think was pretty constant throughout the season, even though I feel like Matt LaFleur and the coaching staff did a good job at getting a better handle on it in the last part of the season. I think it was still a problem even throughout. And that just goes back to something I said a few episodes earlier, which was just the lack of discipline. I feel like, and which was so weird, because that was one thing that at the end of the McCarthy years, the Packers fandom was just really frustrated with. There wasn't a lot of discipline with the way the players were playing. Matt LaFleur came in and he totally changed everything. They played disciplined football, sticking to the fundamentals. Former mentor of mine always used to say the devil's in the details. And it was just really odd to see a Matt LaFleur coach team this season who did so well at just making sure to having the basics down and having those details down. Just didn't. I mean, you saw it with Rasul Douglas. I really want to know what was going through his head, just waltzing in onto the line in the neutral zone, just wanting to grab the ball before it's even snapped. Like, I don't know. What are you doing, man? That was really odd. And then, of course, getting I can't remember his name, but getting the player getting ejected for pushing a member of the other team's training staff when he's trying to get to their injured player. like, again, like, come on, like, what are we doing here, guys? So I really feel like in this offseason, Matt LaFleur just needs to kind of go back to the drawing board, maybe do some searching, or just kind of looking at, hey, what happened this season where we were so good at being disciplined and not making really dumb mental errors? Like, what happened? What changed from the previous 3 seasons going into this season? Yeah, I think overall the Packers are in an interesting spot moving forward. And I say that because, I mean, I unfortunately think, well, before I get into that, I think Randall Cobb has maybe played his last game as a Packer, especially the way Rodgers and him were kind of, arm in arm walking into the tunnel at the end of the game there. I think they it was very reminiscent to the last time that Randall Cobb ended up being cut from the team before. So it should definitely make me sad. I love seeing Randall Cobb in a Packers uniform, but at the same time, I just, from a cap space perspective and output, he's still a good receiver. I just don't think he's worth the money anymore, unfortunately, that he is getting. But that kind of gets to my point of where the Packers are at moving forward. I think that they're just in a weird spot because I think the previous 3 seasons was the Packers' window to win a Super Bowl when it came to where they're at with a cap space and talent and, contracts that were still existing before they were all up going into this current season. And I think Byron Gutekunst and the Green Bay Packers tried to pry open that window going into this season before it slammed shut. And it just didn't work, and it really just kind of showed with what was on the field where, they couldn't keep everybody, they couldn't totally run it back, and it just showed. And so I think they're in a weird spot, and I think it's of their own making, where I really feel like that it was going into the season was the time to kind of clean house, and it would have hurt and it would have sucked to see Aaron Rodgers, leave the team. But I don't know. I mean, this is where we're at. Aaron Rodgers is demanding a lot of money. There's other players that are demanding a lot of money, and they don't really have the cap space to go out and make some big splashes in free agency, and I don't see them being able to do a lot with the draft picks they have. So it's a very interesting spot they're going to be in. The Packers over these next couple of years, I think, are going to have to get really creative. And I'll end this by saying, like, Matt LaFleur, like, what does it take to get your team ready? I think Matt LaFleur is a fantastic head coach. I think he was a great hire by the Packers organization, but it just seems to be the final hurdle for him as a head coach is, what do you need to do to get your players ready? What do you need to do to prevent your players from just kind of laying an egg on a game where you won the game and you're in the playoffs? Meanwhile, the Lions were the ones playing as if they had something to play for, and they didn't. I mean, they were eliminated from contention, but it looked like they were the ones who were like, "Hey guys, we got to win this so we can make the playoffs." So it's something that's kind of confounded me for these last few years of how the Packers in so many ways could be so good, and then in games where it matters, they just look deflated. And I really feel like that comes down to coaching. I feel like they need to figure that out. So I feel like I've gone on long enough. And it was a weird season, but it was a fun season to watch, especially towards the end. And we'll just see where it goes from here. Thank you guys for an awesome podcast. And I'm looking forward to what happens and what the years to come. So green and gold till I'm dead and cold. And have a good one, guys.
Thank you very much, Jared, sending that in from Colorado. It felt like we were along for the ride with him. It was a great message to receive. Interesting point to start it right off, Scott. Jared saying that this loss didn't hurt quite as much as previous season enders.
I get what he's saying, but I think it hurt me more just because I too kind of gave up. I just kind of assumed that the season was over after 6 losses out of 7 games right there in the middle. So the fact that they kind of teased me and brought me back and said, "You're saying there's a chance," I felt like I got my hopes up way too much too quickly. So this one stung a little bit because all we had to do was get past the Lions. That's all we had to do. And that's not a knock on the Lions. They're a much better team this year than they have been in previous seasons, but they weren't even in the playoff. They weren't even in contention anymore. We couldn't get past that. At home,
Yeah.
At home. It just didn't make any sense. How about you?
I'm torn. I think the playoff losses to the 49ers hurt the most, but this one really hurt as well for the reasons you stated, because we should have won that game. We knew the Lions weren't going to be pushovers like years past, which is too bad, but we should have won the game. And like Jared said, the lack of discipline this year, the devil being in the details. And during this offseason, Matt LaFleur needs to go back to the drawing board. I like how, Jared, how you put it when you said, what does it take to get your team ready?
Head coach calling plays. Just
Whoa.
say that maybe.
And also a great visual with how the window on our playoff chances might have been closing, but Gutekunst tried to, quote unquote, pry open the window just a little bit further one more time. And I think that's a solid point, Jared. And then after his voicemail, he wanted to add, despite the loss, there were some positive things in this game. Rodgers threw for 205 yards. Christian Watson had 104 receiving yards, like you mentioned at the top. Packers defense got some good stops at times, while the offense did have some good drives where they moved the ball, but it was such a mixed bag. Seemed like for every positive thing the Packers did, it looked like they were going to get into a rhythm, and then some boneheaded mistake or questionable call stopped it all. It was kind of a microcosm of the entire season.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of play calling, I feel like we were on the good side of bad calls this weekend. There were some calls I was like, there's no way that's going to go our favor, and it did. I'll take it, but some of those were like, really? Are you sure? I'm not used to feeling that way about calls. I'm just like, really? Are you sure? That's how I'm feeling. But
I think that's how Matt LaFleur was feeling when he threw the challenge flag too. Are you sure? Yeah. Let's go find out. Roll the tape. I love how the NFL integrated this red challenge flag thing. They kind of got that idea from those insurance commercials, and now it's working out for the NFL as well.
Yeah, that's exactly where they got the idea.
Go Pack Go. This is Megan doing my due diligence as a loyal Packer fan and a loyal fan of the Packer Fan Podcast. It's Sunday evening, late 11 p.m. The game's over. The season is over. I don't really know where to start. Disappointing for sure, especially after last week, like absolutely firing on all cylinders, and then to not. We kind of came up short in several different aspects this week, but any given Sunday, right? There were some positives for sure to make note of. I thought, there were some really good passes and catches by Aaron to Allen, and Bobby had a sweet one. And, the run game just couldn't get going, the every other game thing. But, and I don't know, work on our blocking, or I don't know. I don't know the answer. All I know is I'm a Packer fan for life. I will always back the Pack. I will wear my Packer gear tomorrow. Green and gold till I'm dead and cold. It was so sad to watch Aaron and Cobby walk off down the tunnel. They know something we don't know. I don't know. I'm so glad that Cobb was able to come back for the last 2 seasons. Awesome. Super, super fun to have him back. And yeah, there'll be a lot of changes this off season. But what won't change is our loyalty to the green and gold, baby. Let's go! Hey, it's Megan again. I do just have to highlight a few players. I swear, at least 5 or 6 of my voicemails this year started off with Keyshawn Nixon, but it's been so awesome to see him come in and just embrace the role and freaking dominate. It was super fun to watch Watson kind of come into his own, and he's a natural, and it's going to be really fun to watch him over the next couple seasons continue to evolve. Let's see. I don't want to think too much about like who might not be back next year, but yeah, so I just won't do that. But I thought that our defense for sure started clicking in December and, you know, did relatively okay without Rashawn, and I don't know. The another thing I was going to say is, like, we can work on our mental game. I think I don't know how much respect I have for Quay Walker. I know he's young, and I know there's adrenaline with the game, but, like, I swear it's been, like, 4 or 5 or 6 personal fouls or, you know, things like that that are just unnecessary. And I'm like, today, it's like, dude, and then you're crying, like, whining, walking off the field. You can't touch another person. And it's, like, disrespectful, and you're on national television, and people look up to you and grow up. It's not cool, and it's not representative of the Green Bay Packers. Shout out to Matt. You know, he kept on coming back week after week after having like 3 wildly successful years and not having as much success this year. I give him a lot of credit. Can't wait to see what he dials up for next year. As always, green and gold till dead and cold, baby. Let's go!
Thank you so much, Megan. Go Pack, go indeed. Always appreciate your calls. I love just how she started that voice, being a loyal fan of the Packers and of the Packers Fan Podcast. That was really cool. It would not have been an episode without hearing from you, Megan. So thank you so much. I don't know how we got to this. Last week, we just looked so great on both sides of the ball, completely dominated, and then just whatever that was this weekend. I don't get it. I'm with you. I'm wondering what Rodgers and Cobb know that we don't. Is one of them going to be gone? Or both of them going to be gone? Or both of them going to be somewhere else together? Was that a, uniting in solidarity thing and saying goodbye? I don't know. It's interesting. But what do you think? Are we overthinking that, Wayne?
We might be, but it was definitely something, the way that Megan calls him Cobby. Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb going down the tunnel. I expected to see Mason Crosby run up and join in, because that would have been the photo op of all photo ops. But still, it was great that Cobb was able to come back for the past couple of years with the Packers. Didn't get a chance to do much in this game, but there were some games this season where he was clutch. And between him and, like Megan said, the defense starting to click in December, something about December, that's when we finally get our identity and really start getting on a roll. Next year, I do not want us to start out week 1 getting demolished like we did the past 2 years. A win on week 1 would be nice, but I guess we're going to have to wait a while for that.
Yeah, just a little bit. We got quite a wait for that, man.
Okay. But Megan, so thankful for all of your calls and your support. We appreciate it. Let's go back to the listener line. See who else gave us a call at +1 920 3PACK-GO.
Wayne Scott, on from Texas. Oh, man, I'm filled with different emotions here. First, I'm very disappointed. I guess I shouldn't have felt overconfident all week, but I guess the panic started setting in during halftime. I feel the defense did a great job for about the first 3 quarters, but the offense, on the other hand, oh man, they kept stalling at in the red zone. A lot of key dropped passes. Rodgers had a couple of bad reads, but a lot of things obviously didn't go right for us last night. I'm so embarrassed. Like, embarrassed because of what Quay Walker did to that trainer. Like, are you kidding me? I mean, I know he's a rookie and all that. Him and Devontae Wyatt. I mean, I know they're rookies, but like, come on, it should be common sense. You don't do that. Also, Reed doing that to the runner's face mask, like a forearm. Like, my goodness. Anyways, it's on to next year. I'm a little conflicted as to whether I would rather see Jordan Love next year or Aaron Rodgers. I'm guessing Rodgers would be our better chance at getting back to the playoffs, considering, that he started to gel with his new receivers towards the end of the season, towards the latter portion of the season. But we'll see what happens. He has, during the last few games, he has been overthrowing or underthrowing and a couple of questionable reads. But who knows? I mean, he's still a good player. As for now, well, thanks again for the podcast, guys. Awesome to be with you guys for another year. And I'm really looking forward to calling in next year. For now, a temporary farewell to the Packers Fan Podcast family. And I am looking forward to next year, like I said. Feeling gold till I'm dead and cold. Go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go indeed. Art in Texas, thank you so much for all of your calls and your support and all of your kind words. And I understand the variety of emotions. I, too, was very overconfident as a fan this previous week and now deflated. And a lot of it has to do with, like what Art said about things just not working in the red zone this year very much.
Yeah, that's been a definite issue for us this entire season. And by the way, I just got to say a side note. Art, I love everybody that calls into this show, but I really love when he calls in, whether he is coming in on a loss or a win. Art has one of the most soothing voices of anybody that calls in. I just love his cadence and the way that he articulates words. I don't know what it is. I don't have a crush on you, man. Don't take that the wrong way. But I just really like your voice. But yeah, it was. I'm with you. I felt embarrassed by what Quay Walker did to that trainer. That just is like completely out of the spirit of Packers football, in my opinion, or at least what I've been used to since the 90s when I started paying attention to it pretty closely. So I'm also with you, feeling conflicted about whether Love or Rodgers. Rodgers seems like the smart pick, but my heart says Love. I'm just kind of ready for a reset. I'm not saying we're going to go all the way with Love, but I'd like to get that ball rolling. I mean, if you think back to when Favre was our guy. We didn't want Favre to go, but we were tired of his shenanigans. And we're like, let's just move on to Rodgers. This guy seems like he's pretty legit. And that turned out all right. You know what I mean? I'm not saying Love is going to be the next Favre or Rodgers, but I don't know. I'm totally conflicted. I really don't know what to wish for at this point. How do you feel, Wayne?
I feel the same way. And I don't know what to wish for, but I do have to remind myself, really, I think it all comes down to what Aaron Rodgers decides to do. I think, whether it's being held captive or whatever, he's kind of the one that's going to call the shots. I mean, right now he looked and talked like he was ready to retire, but he's not going to make a statement right now. And if he wants to come back, I think he's going to come back. The paycheck alone might be a little tempting.
Yeah,
as well as
we also have to wait to see what Tom Brady is going to do first. That might be a factor as well. I think Tom Brady's going to play another 2 years. So I think, Aaron, this is your year. Retire now. You've got plenty of money, a new love interest, and making money off commercials and all of these things. And before hopefully never getting a really serious injury. It's just, I think it's time. I'm ready for the Love era. Yeah, I'm kind of there too, but it's hard to argue with the quality quarterback he is. I know that he made a lot of funky errors this year, but I know this is a weird comparison because it's a completely different position. Mason Crosby had a funky year or two there too. You remember, and we were all ready to give up on Mason Crosby and bring in somebody else, and here we are singing his praises. So, any given Sunday, any given season, he could come out the gate swinging next year. So it's hard to read the tea leaves and know which is the right direction for us to go. But part of me is just ready to move on. And I just worry that if Aaron Rodgers does not play at all in the preseason, if he does come back, we're going to choke in week 1 again and be rusty, and everybody's going to write us off, and we're going to be digging out of a hole.
Anyway, Art, we really appreciate all of your calls. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to your calls next season. And of course, we'll be back for the draft and all that. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. But talking about Rodgers, this week's poll on Facebook in the Packers community at packerscommunity.com, as well as on Twitter at Packers Fan Pod. Did we just witness Aaron Rodgers' final game as a member of the 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers? And the options were no, he'll be back, or yes, he's retiring, or how about yes, but he's going to be playing elsewhere in 2023.
Oh, man. Trying to answer this one with my head, not my heart. But yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back next season. I wouldn't put money on it, but I feel like that's what's going to happen. Just because he's Aaron Rodgers, and he's I don't think he's going to try to pull a Favre thing and try to start something up somewhere else. Could you imagine him wearing just any other jersey? It would just feel so weird. It just would feel so weird. I mean, it did with Favre. It really felt weird seeing him in a Jets uniform and then a Vikings uniform. But yeah, I think he'll be back. What do you think?
At this point, I mean, the way I'm thinking right now, I think he's retiring. But I would not be surprised at all if he comes back. The votes that came in after we combine the results from Facebook as well as on Twitter, 49% agree with you, Scott. He'll be back. But 37% said, yes, he's retiring. And 14% say, yes, but he's going to be playing somewhere else next season. And that would be odd.
The biggest reason why I think he's going to be coming back is he does not want to end his career with the Green Bay Packers with his last play being an interception.
Well, a lot of quarterbacks don't. And who knows, what if it's, I don't even want to think this, but what if it's even worse next year?
Yeah. I mean, but he's going to want that chance to come back and finish the season on a touchdown pass or something. Maybe even halfway through the season, he gets a win, and his last play is a touchdown pass. Like, okay, that's it. I'm retiring. I'm out. He's going to pull a George Costanza and quit while he's ahead.
Love it.
Well, we had some comments from the community as well. First off, Dictus in Netherlands said, at this point, and with that contract, I think he'll be back. But this was Cobb's last one. That's why they walked off together. That's why AR-12 wouldn't give his jersey away. Cobb gets his to remember their last season together. Then again, who knows? Brett in the UK said, I'm with Dictus on this one. I think that was Cobb's last game, not Rodgers. He said in his press conference he wanted to keep his jersey as it's a nice one to give as a gift to someone close to him. Think that one's for Cobb's office wall. Rodgers mentioned that he thinks the team is a couple of players away from being complete. I think if we draft well, make a good FA veteran signing, and stay healthy, we will have a good run next season. There's a few players on our roster currently who will only get better and more disciplined. I would like to think Rodgers is too competitive to bow out of this game on a low. I think we have at least one more season left of AR-12. But hey, at least we can enjoy the playoff drama and Super Bowl stress-free this season. Normal service will be resumed next season. Until then, go Pack, go.
Brett, thank you. And superfan Aaron Peterson, Dictus is probably right, he says, but honestly, I'm good if he retires. While I've loved watching him, I'm exhausted from watching him the last couple of years. There's not a player that I can think of that looks like he's enjoying playing the game less than Rodgers this past year, and it didn't seem to matter much whether we were winning or losing. He's become arrogant and enamored with his own voice over all others, and unless that's changing, I'm good with moving on.
I'm kind of feeling that way too.
And Jared in Colorado, who we heard from earlier, says, tough to say, especially with Rodgers, but with the contract he signed, I think he'll be back for at least one more year.
I think you're right, Jared. I think you're right. But you know what? I'm going to be good with either way. Either we got Aaron Rodgers or we got Jordan Love. I think they're both pretty good options. I think one is better than the other, but one is also worse than the other. So we're just going to kind of wait and see what happens. As always, guys, your calls, emails, comments, and support are so much a part of the PFP podcast. Thank you. Remember, to join the community and be part of the conversation during the offseason, even at PackersCommunity.com. Even though the season's over for the green and gold, we'll still be hanging around in there, sharing little tidbits of information, fun memes, and just in general community conversation. So please come on over there and join it. It's a great time.
And even if the Packers aren't going to be in the Super Bowl this year like they should have been to play against the Bills, we will probably have a live discussion thread there for folks that want to pop in and talk about it in that particular location. Now, as far as the off-season, it's going to be pretty standard here at the Packers Fan Podcast. Scott and I are going to be on a break from this podcast, though Scott, you'll hear later. He has another podcast, believe it or not. But we're going to be done with the Packers Fan Podcast until April when the draft happens and the schedule release and all of that good stuff. Unless there's some big emergency breaking news like Aaron Rodgers does retire or goes to another team or something like that, we'll have an emergency episode for sure. Plus, if some of you do send in your Packers fan origin stories, we will put out a little episode because we do want to share that with folks while it's at the top of mind. And in a little bit, we're going to do a little peek forward into the future. But I do want to thank everybody for listening this past season. Speaking of this past season, how'd the 2022 season Wager of Fun finale go for the listeners as well as for you and I?
Well, this game was a moot point for you and I in terms of points because, we both picked the Packers to win. And boy, we thought this was going to be a high-scoring game last week, did we not?
Yes, we did.
We really thought that was a high-scoring game. I said 28-27 Packers. You said 30-20 Packers. Wound up being 20 Lions, Packers 16. So neither of us gets a point there. All of our listeners, I could have swore we had at least 2 listeners that picked the Lions to win, but I am not seeing them written down here. Did they just mysteriously disappear there, Mr. Henderson? Or
I might have missed some things, but I don't recall seeing anybody pick the Lions to win. In previous weeks, we have had people pick the Vikings to win and the Cowboys to win and things like that. But this time, I think it was a clean sweep. If I'm wrong, please forgive me. But I do believe we have a clear-cut winner in the listener section as well.
Oh, for sure. We definitely had a winner there. Garrett Stritzel had 5 total wins. The second place was 2 wins, so he had 3 full games ahead of everybody else. That tie there was David Newman, Jay Walters, and Brett Connor. And then in third place, there was also a tie between Alex Bartman, Dan Dyler, and Mr. Aaron Peterson, each having 1 win. So congratulations, Garrett. You are the winner. I will be in contact with you to get your T-shirt size and some specs on how you'd like your T-shirt. I will actually be making your T-shirt, man. I'm not ordering it. I'm actually making it for you. Believe it or not, I've got the materials to do that here. So I'm going to need to know your shirt size and which color you want. You want green on yellow or yellow on green, all that good stuff. So stay tuned for a contact from me in the near future. But as far as Wayne and I, 4 years in a row, Wayne is now reigning on top with a score of 5-4. So it looks like I'm going to be playing some Pokemon Go.
Yes, you are.
Up to level 10. I am not looking forward to that, but I'm going to have to bite the bullet and own up to it. So at least you didn't make me sing this year.
Oh, we may bring back the singing. That was such a popular option. But yeah, and we'll do the Pokemon Go thing. You know, things are pretty busy between now and probably the Super Bowl, but Scott and I will work out the schedules when it'll be best for him. You know, I don't know what level you left off on, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, whenever it was, but getting up to level 10 is not a big undertaking, and we'll do some legendary remote raids together, and that'll bump you up pretty fast as well.
Okay. Apparently the game has grown since I played it. It was pretty basic when I was first playing it, when it was all the craze back then, but
it's a lot more involved. You're going to be surprised. Hopefully pleasantly.
Okay.
Hopefully pleasantly. So I will accept this victory. We'll see what happens next season. And of course, if you have some more ideas on what we can have Scott do, if by some chance I win again, let us know. I think, Scott, you're going to probably stick with when you do win.
Oh, yeah.
You will one of these years. I'm going to be playing Madden.
I think the community is going to demand a Madden matchup anyway. At some point.
We may just need to do that. I'm willing, but it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty.
I think it'll be hilarious if I can figure out how to stream that and everybody can watch you. I mean, I'm not good at Madden, so it's going to be pretty funny. But It'll be pretty great. I think you should just be the Vikings or something, and I'll play the Packers. And
if we do this, I will not be the Vikings, the 49ers, or the Bears, but I'm open to I'll be the Buffalo Bills, whatever, Jacksonville Jaguars. Maybe the Jags are going to the Super Bowl this year.
Well, you can play Packers versus Packers.
This opens up a whole new window of opportunity. But
you can do away jerseys versus home jerseys, so it's not an impossibility.
But what a fun season that was! It just adds a little new angle, and huge congratulations, Garrett Stritzel, man, with your 5 wins. You pretty much locked it up. If it wasn't for us not being in the playoffs, that was the only way anybody could catch you.
If I had gotten double points for getting the score exactly right, it would have been a tie. I'm just throwing that out there. I got one of the scores exactly right.
I think that was last.
Oh, you got one too, though, didn't you?
Yes. So we already put the double points things to bed, but that was fun. We'll do it again next season. As far as other things happening around the league this past week, the only thing that jumped out to me really was the Jaguars won their division after 2 years in a row of losing 13 games or more. Now they win their division. Look out, because I think they're actually on a roll. I don't know if they can get past Buffalo, but I think they're going to make some noise.
That's going to be a fun game to watch. I want to watch that game for sure. Also, on a positive note, Damar Hamlin has been officially released from the hospital and is back in Buffalo. Obviously, everybody is aware of what happened at last Monday night's game. It happened actually while we were recording. So Wayne and I got off recording, and all of a sudden our phones were blowing up. Like, have you seen this? And it was insane. I was staring at the screen just waiting for bad news, but thankfully the guy pulled through. He's got lots of support from friends and family and fans of the NFL. His charity raised a whole bunch of money, so all around very positive things coming out of a horrible situation. So very happy for him and his family. Quickly, I want to remind everybody one last time this season about my other podcast, The Gaming Outsider. We just recorded our latest community questions episode where we ask our listeners for video game related questions to entice fun conversation. And as usual, it was a blast. I also got a chance to review a brand new Nintendo game. And when I say Nintendo game, I don't mean Nintendo Switch. I'm talking about the old original console from the 1980s. Yes, they were still making games for that console.
Now,
they're still making games.
Is that the one that you collect?
I do collect those, yes. But the games that we're talking about, they're homebrew games. They're basically people that are still currently making brand new games that you can actually play on your NES. But they're also taking those games and ported them to modern consoles. So I got to play this game called Nescape, like NES Escape. It's an escape room. And they brought it to modern consoles. And fun fact, I found out after I reviewed this game that I am literally the first critic to have actually ever reviewed this game. I published it, and my contact actually asked me for logos so they could put it on their marketing material because I was the first to review this game, and it was kind of a cool feeling. So if you want to read it, it is over on our website, which is thegamingoutsider.com, and I'd love it if you checked it out. It was a very, very cool feeling for me and an honor. So... and really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, congratulations. And just to make sure I didn't mishear, it's thegamingoutsider.com, correct?
Yes, sir.
Awesome stuff. Value for value is what we go by here at the Packers Fan Podcast. Thank you for giving back to the show via Patreon, as well as with all of your support, your voicemails, your retweets, whatever you got. We love it. And we really do love the Patreon support. Details for becoming a patron and the other ways you can give back to the show are at packersfanpodcast.com/giveback. Huge thanks and Go Pack Goes going out to Dan Dyler for all of your support at the Jim Ringo level, and Jay Walters. Thank you, and Go Pack Go for your invaluable AR-12 level support. We greatly appreciate it.
Go Pack Go, and thank you to our loyal Brett Favre level supporters, Colin Nolan from Ireland, Miguel Ramirez from the Opposites Attract podcast, Scott Boers, and Andre in LA. Also, Curly Level Go Pack Goes and thank yous to Joe Christensen, Matt Haig, Hank Davis from the TPE Network. We really do appreciate your support. And if you too are interested in supporting the show, maybe even becoming a patron of the PFP, check out the details at PackersFanPodcast.com/giveback. As a reminder, we are the Unofficial Packers Fan Podcast, not yet affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers. But if you get a chance, follow us over on wherever you follow your podcast. And remember to tell your friends about the Packers Fan Podcast. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And follow us on Twitter. Why not? Packers Fan Pod. Follow Scott on Twitter at GoCastScott and follow me at Wayne Henderson. And now to help send the pack off into the offseason on a high note, it's Patreon supporter Dan Dyler.
All right, this is Dan, a.k.a. Pack Sparrow, and Brett.
Coming in from Tottenham, all the way from London, England. And this is the Go Pack Go.
Go, 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 go.
Go Pack Go!